My name is Tim. I'm currently heading up the online department in dtac. dtac is the second biggest operator in Thailand. We have approximately 30 million customers. Before I joined dtac a year ago, I did actually the same, so building up online teams in telecom operators for Vodafone worldwide. So I've been working in Asia, in Europe, in Africa. And I mean, Thailand is in a couple of ways special. And it's also a challenge to actually build up online there because of the simple fact that there haven't been any big organizations paving the way for the telco industry, where in Europe we actually lag behind banks and airlines. In Thailand that hasn't happened. I mean, there's a bank on every corner, everybody transacts through ATMs, 7-Elevens, those kind of things, so it's quite a challenge there. But that's a different subject. When it comes down to streaming music for the telco industry, what is the relevance? I mean, when you look at the telco industry at the moment, you see a steady decline in the revenue that we get through voice, and we have to make up somehow, and the answer to that is basically data. And whether that's internet access or Facebook packages or streaming music, I mean, that's the answer and potentially the savior for the telco industry in the future. So we are, yeah, definitely interested in that aspect. Then there's another part, I mean, where in Europe telecom operators have become sort of a commodity. They're not really sexy anymore. In Asia, it's a bit different. I mean, the importance of the brand dtac in Thailand is huge. I mean, we're constantly in the news. Everything we do is covered, and that puts some pressure on what do we do and how do we build our image. And a trendy image, which is appealing to especially, let's say, the young urban professionals, and which are basically the big spenders in our postpaid base. These are specifically interested in products like music streaming. So the trendy image building is also part of the reasons why we are interested in this specific area. And then there's another aspect to it, where in the beginning we thought that we would create a huge revenue stream with streaming music. We're basically doing that, but in addition to that, we also found that it's a very powerful instrument to actually keep your customers. So the churn in the group of customers that are using streaming music in our base is extremely low. And you obviously need to partner up with a good company, and in our case, we actually partnered with Deezer, and it's working well. So, I mean, at the moment, we launched about 9 months ago, I think. We have approximately 180,000 people using the service at the moment, which is 7-8% of our postpaid base. We think it will grow to approximately 1 million this year. So we're steadily growing there, and it's definitely important for us. And in addition to that, it's I mean, the model where you actually don't own the music but loan the music, and where you get access to 15 million songs last year and now 18 million songs, because we actually forced Deezer to extend the whole base, especially in the Thai J-pop and K-pop, which they did. It's a great tool, and it's really appreciated by the users of this service in our customer base.
Okay, Sebastian.
Okay, Sebastian from Sony Music. I'm responsible for the digital and business development part of Sony Music in the APAC region, and let's say our view as a label is that currently we see a lot of new services coming, especially in APAC. They are engaging to become a bigger part, let's say, of the music industry in general. We see declining physical sales, so that's definitely from a label perspective a big opportunity, and we support all the services that are coming. I have to mention the competition. Maybe you guys heard Spotify is launching or has launched in 3 markets. We have a great service, which is Deezer, which is already there for quite a while. We have Akazu, which is also there for quite a while. There are other services, I have to name them as well. You have KK Box, you have Me Radio, for instance, in Singapore. So all those services, basically, they make the music content available in a legal way. What we see as a label is that illegal downloading is very popular in Asia. In some markets, 99% of music is really coming through illegal sources. So I think the key development is here that the more services are coming, the bigger the choice, and the ones with a user-friendly experience and also with an attractive price point will eventually survive in the market and be successful.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Clément, and I used to be a pirate. I used to download a lot of illegal music, and I have at home maybe 5 hard drives full of illegal music.
We got this on camera, right?
Yes. And I'm saying that, and then my life changed, and I met Deezer. Why my life has changed? Because I realized that there is no point in owning that much music if you don't know what to listen. And I was just following iTunes top 10 songs, and I was following the top songs on the radio, and my life was really, really boring. So when I got on Deezer, I realized that I had this perfect library with all the music possible online. That's more than 20 million tracks. But most importantly, the great stuff about Deezer and music streaming services is music recommendations. It's like when you jump on that service and you click the play button, then you will start a musical journey of discovering new artists that you don't even know and that you like. So how does it work? We have a local editorial team that will handpick local artists, work with the labels, and find the hottest artists of the moment. We have, of course, recommendation based on what you listen. Very powerful algorithm that will look at what you listen, what is your habits of listening, and then we will push music based on that. And we have also the Facebook integration where you will discover music thanks to your friends. So why, and the topic today is why do we partner with operators and with dtac most importantly? It's because we realize that music revolution is actually a very addictive service. When you start using it, you will never stop. Your life is going to change in your habits of listening to music. The churn rate at Deezer ourselves is less than 0.5% after 6 months. So when we got a user for 6 months, then he's hooked for life. So Deezer, the difference to Spotify has a different strategy. Spotify, they make a lot of noise, they go with marketing, they hope that you will download the app and then you will convert. Deezer has not this strategy. We make partnership because we believe we can bring that loyalty tool to our partners. So we have developed special technology, open API to partner with telcos. And what we give, 3 stuff. We give an anti-churn, so killing the people switching to other telco. We give an RPU booster, so we believe that people, once they love the service, they will be willing to pay a bit more. And we give a great marketing tool where we take the artist, and for dtac it was crazy. We got artists supporting dtac on their Facebook, on their Twitter. They organize concerts, they sponsor the Fashion Week with this. It was just a great support for their marketing. And we've seen in France where we partnered with Orange, Orange was a telco more on business, really corporate. And then they partner with Deezer, and now they are the brand for the youth, they are the brand for the techies, for the trendy people. They really changed their image by using music streaming. Thank you.
Okay, great. I think I'm very interested in some of the points that have been raised in this particular exchange. Sebastian, you said Spotify is a competitive entity?
Sorry,
mentioned the players, Spotify. Not really, right? Kind of love-hate.
For us as a label, we are friends with everybody. I support all the services. I have love for Clément. I have love for the other partners. At the end, I want to see as many services out there as possible. We as a label want to make music available, as much as possible through legal channels. So Spotify definitely has a different strategy how to reach the customers, and I think they will maybe reach different customer groups than Deezer and then the other service providers. Also, it depends on the customers, how they use the service and what their friends are using. There are functionalities like exchanging playlists or the social features that Clément discussed yesterday in his presentation. So we will see a lot of different audiences that will find appeal in different services, and I think there is enough room for everybody in the market.
Yeah, I mean, Spotify...
One more. When I say enough room in the market, I just read, not just, but I remember a study from 2011 that said that in 2015, APAC will be the biggest music streaming market in the world. So I strongly believe there is a lot of room still to grow here.
Sure, and I'm just going to quote Daniel Ek, who was the CEO and founder of Spotify, saying the single biggest barrier to the proliferation of streaming services is the rights challenge, having to negotiate country by country all the rights for all the music and with all the local associations. I'm not sure if the audience understands how detailed and how challenging that can be. Is there an easy way for you to describe how rights work country by country? Not individual country, but how you see the breakdown of rights?
So let me give you an example for the APAC region. For the big services like Deezer, Spotify, we usually do global deals. So this is negotiated in either UK or maybe New York. So Deezer has one contact at Sony Music, one at Universal, that they negotiate the right on a global basis. Now this makes sense or is very, let's say, good for markets like the US and Europe, because with the three major labels you will cover, let's say, 80% of the market, and 20% of the market are maybe independent labels. So then you sign maybe two big independent aggregators, even aggregators, and then you cover pretty much a massive amount of music. You will have your 20 million songs. Now when you come to Asia, the whole thing changes a little bit, because here the story is a little bit different. The three majors are basically only owning, let's say, between 20 to 30% of the market, depending on each market, and the independent labels are very strong. So then you have to negotiate with a lot of independent labels in order to get their songs on your service. So that's one side of the coin. And then it comes also to other publishing, and where you have to basically pay the royalties for the, let's say, composers, songwriters, and this is a whole different story. This is a separate negotiation which is not done with the label.
I would like to add something on that, and maybe your feedback from dtac will be interesting. At first, people told us that it was very important to have as much as possible of a local catalog. So we worked very hard in Thailand to bring that local catalog in. But then when we launched and we look at what the Thailandese were actually listening, we realized that they were listening to Justin Bieber and Rihanna and all those international music artists. And we realized that in the end, yes, maybe Thai love Thai music, but when they get on streaming with this 20 million catalog, well, they will go to the big Sony artists, the big Universal artists. So do you have any feedback on that? On the way they use Deezer and the way they...
No, yeah, I mean, we see the same, obviously. And the thing it is, and especially in Thailand, I think, is that they always want to localize services. They always want to have a say in it. And it's very important for them to get this local flavor of the Thai music. Whether they use it or not, it's not really important. It's just sort of more of a mentality kind of question. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they wanted it. And it doesn't surprise me at all that they actually don't listen to it that much. Yeah. Yeah. But I recognize it.
And another good insight that we have is so you can listen to music streaming either on the data of your cell phone, either on the Wi-Fi or either on the offline. And we realized in Thailand that people were using at 90% on offline and Wi-Fi. They weren't using the data actually. They could if they wanted, but no, they preferred to get it on the Wi-Fi and on the offline. Yeah. Do you have any reason or any insight on why they will do that?
There's probably a couple of reasons. First of all, I think it's an education piece, so people don't always realize what part do they have to pay for and what part don't they pay for. That's one thing. Secondly, until recently, also the build-up of the 3G network has been slowly and patchy. Let's say only in the last couple of months, things really started speeding up, and now especially with the rollout of the new network, we are definitely ready, let's say, for these kind of services. So I think it all has to do with a piece of education that you actually can just do it through your 3G services. Yeah, we're still talking about 3G and not 4G like in Singapore, so sorry for that.
And the culture, not Thailand, but Vietnam, Indonesia, it's going to be the same. It's going to be a Wi-Fi hotspot related activity. So the drive to data is something which is also network dependent in terms of dropouts and so on. There's a kind of a user experience challenge there. I don't know quite how much you want to invest in your base stations to make this a seamless experience for the end user. Is that a consideration when you think about planning such a product?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, part of our whole rollout planning, which I can't share at this moment, but you can trust us that this is definitely a consideration going forward. And I mean, it's #1 priority for this year is actually to, and that goes a little bit maybe off the subject, but we moved from a concession structure where we had a concession license for the network with CAT, a third party, who was a fixed operator. We moved to where we now own our own license. So we actually acquired our own license recently. And we are building our new network based on that new license. And these services definitely, and also the let's say the data capacity are definitely considerations in the whole rollout schedule, where we obviously first focus on the bigger Bangkok area, and then gradually we'll move into the other areas in Thailand, where we see a lot of potential. Yeah.
In terms of the second point on the agenda, the challenges in the business model. How do we create a business model for the long haul, I think was the specific quote. Obviously, and we're using Spotify as the benchmark, I'm sorry about that, but they stated one of the key reasons that they are not making money is because they are paying high royalties. I know it's a sensitive subject, so I'm going to start with Sebastian, but what do you think of business models overall, and specifically how they can be a win-win for both partners in the ecosystem?
Wow, that's a tough question.
You see it coming.
Obviously, I mean, from a label perspective, it's not that we keep the money. Yeah, first point. A lot of this money is then giving towards the artist. Also, what most people forget, that as a label, we invest in building the artist first. So you have, depending on what territory, what artist, you have sometimes over $1 million upfront investment in order to build up an artist. So obviously, we are a commercial entity. We need to be profitable. We have shareholders to satisfy, and we need to get this money somehow back. Just another point, also in this process of building an artist, for instance, if you want high quality products, you need to invest heavily. I give you an example with a video production, for instance. If you want to run a nice video production with a well-known director, you pay easily 200K just for one music video. Now, this is a tool that you need in order to, or one of the tools that you will need in order to drive the artist awareness and build up an artist. So there are definitely smart people in the company, they do the calculations and they have a number at the bottom where they say, okay, we need to get this share in order to be profitable at some point of time. So when Spotify says we are too expensive, you have to also see it in the big picture. There are other services, you have Pandora, or in the US, for instance, you have other services that pay even higher rates than Spotify. So I understand that they need to become profitable at the end as well, but it must make sense for all parties in the game to have a cake that is big enough and everybody gets a piece of it.
It's not really your problem to solve, right? I mean, I don't know if anyone saw the article in Rolling Stone, which assessed streaming music providers in the States and gave them a survival rating. It gave Spotify a 75% chance of survival. Rhapsody, I think it gave 90%, and Radio 85%. Deezer wasn't on there, so you escaped the journalist there, but it's a tough one, right?
I think definitely in the future we will see many of the players merging together, and for one reason. Deezer has spent 150% of their turnover back to the labels over the last 2 years. So we're giving back to the labels more money than we make. Why? Because the labels are asking to access their content. They will ask for some minimum guarantees. So yes, you're allowed to get our content, but that will cost you this much. And they need to monetize this for all the good reasons that you mentioned. So it takes a lot of financial resources to build up a music streaming services and provider. And yes, we believe that the market will grow. We hope the market will grow, but definitely I believe there will be some merging sooner or later.
Yeah, sorry, Tim, in terms of you're another piece of the pie, so how do you see yourself in that dynamic, business model dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember from Vodafone, my Vodafone times, that they actually tried to get into the business. So Vodafone had some big failures called Vodafone 360 and Vodafone Live. And as an operator, I think they rightfully came to the conclusion, and I think that's what Telenor/dtac is doing very well. Just stick to what you're good at. So I think we wisely stay out of that whole business model, basically. And that's why we team up with somebody who is in the business and try to learn from them, basically, and put those problems on their plate, because we have our own problems.
Well, in the macro level, it's more or less $1 billion industry, we are told, for streaming services globally. And in the UK last year, the streaming revenues doubled, which meant that the amount of royalties paid doubled and became greater than radio royalties for the first time in history. On a positive note, warm and happy note, how far can streaming take the music industry and revenue at the same time? Is it 100% every year, or how far do you think it can grow? Sebastian first.
Maybe a quick remark, because I saw a presentation from Tommy Ahonen, who is quite a leading guy in the whole mobile internet area. And he had a very interesting statistic that with mobile phones, for the first time in history, there were actually, in 1 or 2 years, going to be just as much mobile phones as there are going to be inhabitants. And that makes it the most powerful sort of mass media instrument that ever existed on the planet. And then I'll give it to you.
Thanks. I would like to compare this a little bit with the internet startup scene a couple of years ago. So when you look at Facebook, how long they made no money at all, but they were investing. You have tons of other examples, many startups that invested. Okay, some fail, obviously, but some others become very profitable. Look at where Google is today, look at the Amazons, look at Facebook. They, I think, make also money as far as I remember, correct? So I think it's also a question again of time. future will tell which of the service providers have the right model, have the right service, have the right customer experience, and I strongly believe there will be some that become very profitable, and as I mentioned earlier, APAC, when it's becoming the biggest market maybe in 2015, then we will see which model is the right one.
Well, Deezer was a profitable business before we opened 182 countries. So when we were just in France, and we launched in France 6 years ago, we got like more than 1.5 million users, I think, something like that. The business was profitable, and so then we decided to expand and open all of this country over the world, and well, now we have to invest. Saying that, I think the growth of music streaming, to answer your question, is also very much depending on the support that we'll get from local governments. I've heard that the Singaporean government was actually working on some incentives to get people away from piracy and more on music streaming, or more on downloads or illegal downloads. And I know that there are some discussions also in other countries of Asia. I believe it's just a matter of months or maybe 1 year to get get live, and this will make a good boost to all this music industry, I believe.
And to counter that, because I've got a whole bunch of surveys on my phone, a recent study shows that almost 70% of registered users on music streaming services are inactive. How can that be?
Well, the thing is, when you log on Deezer or Spotify, you get some time for free. And after that period of free, if you want to use it on your mobile, then you have to pay for it. So that's why we have all those accounts that the person have tried the service, and at the end of the free trial, then they decide not to pay, and so they can continue to use the free service on their laptop, but the experience is not as good. So that's at the moment the conversion is very low because the people are not well educated on the power of music streaming. But we are at the beginning of a trend here. So we are at the beginning of the curve. And this will change little by little by little. And the conversion rate actually is increasing since the beginning from now. And this will continue to increase. Because, as what you say, it's very social. So when you will get all your friends on Deezer or Spotify, then, oh yeah, you will be less reluctant to put your credit card and start paying for that service. So it's just a matter of educating the people of the beauty of music streaming.
Just a question. Yeah. Did you say this was paying subscribers?
Just said registrants.
Yeah, so this could be anybody who probably registered, ever tried the service once, and then left it alone. Yeah. There is probably the same number which is on Facebook registered but never uses Facebook.
Yeah, I've got a whole host of them. One recent study shows 77% of users of legal services are satisfied with their quality. So, there you go.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Deezer whether they, because I don't know the statistics for the dtac base, but the paying customers, I don't assume 70% of the people is inactive.
Well, I don't have the exact statistic on that, but what we know is like the active users of Deezer are spending 60 hours a month listening to music, which is huge. And those are the people that realize the beauty of music streaming, and then when they realize that, then they spend 60 hours listening to music. It's an average, and that's a lot when you look at it. So really, then I believe also that people are not into music, and that people that music streaming is they will never pay for that because they're not into streaming. So I also believe that. Now the challenge is to grow the base of music lovers and people that are willing to pay for that.
Do we have any questions in the audience? Question at the front. Do we have a microphone? Okay, thanks.
It's a question for you, so you have to change. I'm Gianluca D'Agostino, CEO Nemobile, an Italian company in mobile payment. Now, first, a question about a reflex somehow I found in Clément when I was talking about conversion to paying user. He mentioned credit card instead of telco payment, telco billing. They look a bit awkward, given that your positioning is also to partner with telco. But out of that, another curiosity is you said that in France only the business was profitable. And now, I mean, it's incredibly unprofitable because 150% of the revenue only for the label cost, and then I imagine all the rest, people, etc. But remember, I mean, even in France, at the time, there was a minimum guaranteed to labels. So what changed that now suddenly the minimum guaranteed is giving that level?
So, okay, why? Yeah, so this one, why? It's because when you increase the number of users and the numbers of free users by opening 182 countries, so we were just in a few countries in Europe, and then we went global. So the traffic in terms of number of streams went up to the roof. And remember that for each streams, we are paying the labels. So you can imagine the increase in terms of spending that we had to finance that growth abroad. So this explains mostly why that it's a very capital-intensive business, music streaming. And before you can have a good, make benefit or profit, you need to reach a size, like a very huge size of user, of paying user that will pay for the free ones. Am I answering the question? Yeah.
And then the second question, then I conclude. You see, I mean, a trajectory that is going this direction. I mean, because I mean, 150% is huge, no, as a distance of unprofitability. So which is the point where you see? I mean,
well, I wish I knew that information. I don't know the information when we will be profitable again. But which is very interesting is like to see in Asia, and I can see that the growth has been tremendous. And Deezer is just based on Facebook connection. We don't make promotions, we don't spend millions of dollars everywhere advertising. It's just by Facebook Open Graph. And the growth is like, I think like for the last 3 months, we had a growth of 150% just in Singapore. And Singapore is one of the top 5th country in the world in terms of conversion, actually people paying for the service. Now the biggest problem that we have in Asia is like most of the people, they don't have PayPal accounts, they don't have credit cards, and we are at the moment, and please give me your business card, we are at the moment looking to integrate some new wallet and payment.
That's why I'm in Singapore, because we are opening Asia for mobile payment in 50 markets.
I mean, from my perspective, we've been in the mobile industry for the last 10 years, creating billing relationships with operators for the last 10 years, so it's natural that we have mobile billing built into our system. It's almost unthinkable that you wouldn't have it out here in Asia, but obviously you mentioned that was one of the key points in your adaptation to this region was the mobile component. The challenge is multifarious, but I'm sure the operator can give us an insight into what's the best way to manage billing, because you have direct-to-account billing, you have prepaid billing, and you have top-ups, and you have so many different billing contacts with your subscribers. What do you feel is the most successful route to getting that conversion, that payment?
Yeah, I mean, the way we did it with Deezer is basically now part of our postpaid subscription base, and then it's just on the bill, basically. When you look at our e-commerce business, we had I have to say, dtac isn't always that forward-looking, but at least 5 years they invested in our own payment gateway, which is called Pay. And it's considered to be one of the leading payment gateways and the leading payment gateway in Thailand. It's used by a lot of other companies as well. And that creates some credibility and some security, and that's very important in building an e-commerce business in a country like Thailand.
Yeah, in terms of creative payment systems, how creative do you think you can get? Because there are also many ways for prepaid subscribers to have overdrafts, for example, and pay on catch-up. There are many different ways to manage the prepaid relationship. Where do you see that going?
We don't allow that, first of all. So, yeah, I mean, we thought about it, and we discussed it also with Deezer, if we're going to do it. It's in countries like Thailand, and I also know in Malaysia, it's not a smart thing to do as an operator, because you run all the risk, and therefore we decided against it. Creative payment methods. I mean, the whole online market and the whole e-commerce business in Thailand is so immature. that the thing you need to do is, first of all, build trust and credibility. And the more creative you get, the less likely you will succeed. So it's first all about putting the basics in place and build credibility and trust in that area. And don't become overly creative, actually. Giving away is, I mean, that's also what we do with Deezer. Giving away subscription for a couple of weeks. Those are the things where we become creative, but not in the actual payment.
Mm. But your objective, more or less, is to limit churn? Or what do you see as your key driver in this service?
Yeah, our first key driver was obviously the uptake of data and the fact that people actually pay for the usage of data. And so we really saw it when we started it, and we thought it would be a key revenue driver. And to a certain extent it is, but I mean, I say to a certain limit, because all streaming, like video and music streaming, is very network intensive. So when you look at the usage of the 3G, the data network, those are not necessarily our best clients. So, but churn reduction is basically has become the key factor in this why we continue with Deezer.
So in terms of positioning, is another question actually I'd like to ask Sebastian. Samsung has its music stores here and there. Sony has its music stores here and there. There are third-party players all over the world going over the top. There's local players country by country. How difficult is it to stay neutral when you do kind of represent a brand in that way, in that place?
I would say first for the Sony services, we have different entities in Sony. So I am Sony Music, which is representing first the artist. So I partner with all the service providers out there and also provide the same opportunities for all service providers. If we have, let's say, a new release of Beyoncé coming out, I will address all the service providers and ask them, okay, guys, here is an opportunity. You potentially could have pre-release streaming. So before the album is released, you can stream it on your service. Now, what do you give us in return? What audience do you want to address? Do you plan to do a marketing campaign? How does this marketing campaign look like? Obviously, every service provider wants to have some exclusivity on this, but then it's a question, okay, who's giving me the best package in order to drive awareness around this artist? But we as Sony Music are neutral in this field, so there is not one partner that we say, okay, this week it's going to be just Spotify, this week or this month it's only Deezer. Or
okay, and not sure if this is a tricky question. Oh, sorry, we have another question at the back. I can wait for my question.
Sorry, I'm from the traditional radio museum from Malaysia. Just curious to know what your thoughts are about iTunes and the radio service that they want to launch.
I still don't understand why they haven't launched yet. They are just waiting the right moment before they start killing iTunes. And they realize that music streaming is the future, but they're still making so much money with downloads. It's like, oh, it will be too bad to stop that. And they're very afraid of what's going to be the transition. The problem is, like, the more they're waiting, the bigger are becoming Spotify and Deezer and all the others. And so they may be losing some markets. When I'm saying that, I'm just crossing my fingers I'm right. Because when they will actually launch their service, that's going to be a big bath of blood for the music streaming industry, definitely. I believe that the labels, because the labels, they don't want to see an iTunes too predominant in the market. For the last 5 years, I don't know how old is iTunes, but for the 5 years, iTunes owns so much market share that for the labels it's not very easy to negotiate with Apple. So the labels are also looking very nicely at the Spotify coming up, Deezer Spotify coming up. So I guess they will protect us a bit by not authorizing Apple to have the same features as we have. So Apple, we may launch a radio service, but you won't be able to have an offline mode. You won't be able to have this Facebook Connect stuff. You won't be to have all the services that you find on Deezer and Spotify. That's my insight. Maybe I'm wrong, completely wrong.
But they'd also need to make it not Apple specific, right? Because if it's only Apple, then in Asia it doesn't really matter too much. Maybe in Europe and America it'll make a difference, but really out here, they've got a long way to go. So I guess it's geographic as much as anything.